All right. Welcome back to the Kentucky Talks podcast. We are finally able to do a positive one as Kentucky just knocked off Arkansas 24-20 podcast. Oh man, what a game. So, pretty much for the entirety of the first half, I was 100% convinced that we were going to get blown out. It was not a good showing in the first half. It was 13-7 going into halftime. We were able to score on a final drive before we took it into the half, which was much needed because, we hadn't been able to get anything going. Offensive play calling was bad. We weren't breaking any runs. Any momentum we had was just stopped. But I'm not even going to spend too much time focusing on the negatives from this game. I truly think it's a miracle we won it just by the way we played in the first half. But we pulled it out, and it was quite the nerve-wracking game. I was so mad at the end of the first quarter. I was convinced that we weren't gonna pull it out. Second play of the game, Rakeem Boyd busts a 74-yard run for a touchdown, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I just figured it was going to be. It was the fourth game in a row that we started off poorly, and we got off to a bad start, and we just allowed them to do whatever. It's four games in a row, man. That we got off to a start like that, and it took a little while for us to get our offense going. I honestly, like I said, all the first half, I was convinced we weren't going to win it. But we came into the second half and we played with heart, and we played with passion, and they actually showed some fire both offensively and defensively in the second half. And we came out and we found a way to win the game. Now, I'm sure people are going to look down on this game because it's Arkansas and, they're bad or whatever. But we just won an SEC game with a wide receiver playing quarterback. And no matter who you are and no matter who you're playing, it's very difficult to win an SEC game in those circumstances. So you got to give props to our team for showing some heart. On the defensive end, we showed up in the second half, like I'm saying, and Calvin Taylor was huge. He had a couple of big-time plays, big-time stops. Boogie Watson had a strip sack in the first half, and we were able to really just shut off their passing game. They did not do very well for the most part. The backup quarterback, Ben Hicks, checked in for the second half. Starkel played the first half. Hicks played the second half. Hicks came in and actually ended up doing better. I think if Hicks played the whole game, maybe there might have been a different outcome. Starkel was missing a lot of passes, and we got really lucky on a couple of overthrows, a couple of incompletions, a couple of bad plays, bad throws by Nick Starkel. So, when Ben Hicks came in, he ended up going 5 for 8 for 81 yards in the second half. But really what our defense struggled with was Rakeem Boyd and just the Arkansas running game in general. Boyd had 15 carries for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, 74 of those yards were on that opening carry for him. When that happened, like I said, I was like, okay, yeah, I see how this game is going to go. But I really want to talk about Lynn Bowden. Without Lynn Bowden, I don't even know what would have happened in this game. He went 7 for 11 passing for 78 yards and a touchdown through the air. And then on the ground, he had 24 carries for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he counted for 3 touchdowns. He had almost 200 yards rushing and 80 yards passing. And one of his throws was, I think we were about 20 yards out, maybe we were on the 22 yard line, maybe just inside the 20. And I'm pretty sure everyone thought that he was going to be lobbing it up to Ahmad Wagner, but instead he looked off Ahmad Wagner, turns to the right and throws a beautiful fade to Clavan Thomas in the top right corner of the end zone, and Clavan Thomas is able to turn off his left shoulder and bring it in. It was a beautiful pass by Lynn, and brought it in for the touchdown. And that was, Jordan Rogers, one of the announcers, was just raving about Lynn in that pass, and just talking about how huge it was. So that's just, it was a great throw. And Lynn made a few really good throws. There were some RPO instances where the tight end was open. I think he had 2 completions to Justin Rigg, one of which was for like over 20 yards, or it may have been a little less than that, but they had a big throw to Justin Rigg. He would have had about probably 10 more receiving or 10 more passing yards than he ended up having if his screen pass to AJ Rose, which ended up being like a 9 or 10 yard gain, got called back due to a hold by Josh Ali. But at the end of the day, Lynn Bowden fulfilled the quarterback position for us. It was kind of up in the air whether or not he was going to play, or whether or not he was going to start at quarterback. I think we all knew pretty much all week long that he was going to be the QB. They wanted to keep it under wraps to kind of throw off Arkansas's play or preparations and whatnot. But no, I mean, Lynn Bowden played so well, especially in the second half. He really just took off. In the first half, Eddie Gran continuously called runs up the middle, and it just wasn't working. We were not breaking any runs. And then the second half, he kind of started allowing Lynn to move towards the outside. We started getting our players and our playmakers in open space, open field, and we started doing really well. AJ Rose had 16 carries for 90 yards, and in the first half, he didn't really have any good carries, maybe 1 good carry in the first half. And then in the second half, he busted like 2 big runs because once we were able to move the ball to the outside, we were kind of able to spread out the defense a little bit. They weren't able to stack the box. There'd be like 6 or 7 defenders stacked in the box, and we'd still run up the middle. It's like, why are we doing that? And I remember there was it was a 4-play. We went for it on 4th down, but on 1st down we ran up the middle. On 2nd down we ran up the middle. On 3rd down we ran up the middle, and then on 4th and 10, we went for it and didn't get it, and they ended up getting the ball, or we fumbled. Yeah, we tried to run up the middle again, and we fumbled, and they recovered and ended up kicking a field goal and scoring. I mean, there was a muffed punt by Josh Ali in the first half that looked like Arkansas recovered it, but they gave it to us. If Arkansas had recovered that, we may not have won this game. But again, I don't want to focus on the negatives. I mean, Lynn Bowden was just unbelievable out there. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. We knew Lynn Bowden, if given the opportunity, was going to really do what was necessary. In the receiving game, Justin Rigg had 2 catches for 43 yards. He had 1 catch for 31 yards. So that was the catch. That was the play I was talking about. Alan Daly had 1 catch for 14 yards. Josh Ali had 2 catches for 13 yards. Clavan Thomas had 2 catches for 10 yards and 1 touchdown, which was that touchdown I was talking about. And then Bryce Oliver had a catch for 8 yards. So really nice. When we ran we ran about 2 or 3 jet sweeps. They ended up counting as receptions for Josh Ali and Bryce Oliver, but the Bryce Oliver one went for 8 yards, and then Josh Ali had, I think, both of his quote-unquote receptions were jet sweeps. So the jet sweeps were working really well. Like I said, if we get our speedy guys in open space like that, good things tend to happen. Again, I think Eddie Gran forgets that we do not have Benny Snell lining up in that backfield. So running up the middle is really not an option as much. And if we're going to run up the middle, I feel like Chris Rodriguez needs to get the ball. They've been talking all week about how Chris Rodriguez has earned more reps, and he did not have a single carry. So I definitely want to see some more of Chris Rodriguez. There was a situation where we were backed in. We were on our own 1 yard line, and they kept running AJ up the middle. And I mean, AJ is just he's not a churner. He's not a guy who's going to push through the offense or the defensive line and get you yardage like Chris Rodriguez would. But I guess they're just so scared of his fumbling issue that he had in the Toledo game that they're just completely unwilling to give him a shot. So I keep kind of leaning towards the negative, talking about the negative things. It's like I just feel like there was Arkansas gave us this game pretty much. I mean, it's like we did everything in our power to lose, and we still somehow won. So, I'm very happy we won. Cavassier Smoke had 11 carries for 45 yards, and he busted a 25-yard run in the fourth quarter. That was huge on that final drive where we ended up icing the game and scoring that touchdown, that Lynn Bowden touchdown. On that drive, Cavassier Smoke had a 25-yard run, A.J. Rose had a 27-yard run, and Lynn Bowden had a 24-yard run to get the touchdown to seal the deal and win the game. And then on the final drive, when the game was pretty much over, we were just trying to run the clock out. Lynn Bowden had a 51-yard run. So just props to Lynn Bowden for really handling it well. 7 for 11 for 78 yards and a touchdown is not bad for a quarterback. I mean, Terry Wilson had games last year where he had similar numbers, would only throw the ball 10 or 11 times and would only complete 7 or 8 of them. I mean, that's almost a Terry Wilson type game. I mean, that last year, like I said, Terry Wilson had stat lines like that last year, and Terry Wilson is an actual quarterback who played for Oregon at one point. So, I mean, Lynn Bowden in the passing game played extremely well. He had one throw. It was a deep ball to Ahmad Wagner, and if they hadn't held Ahmad Wagner and if they hadn't have pass interference Ahmad Wagner, he probably would have caught that. It would have been a big, nice touchdown bomb from Lynn Bowden. I think we ended up scoring on that drive. Matt Ruffalo hit a 50-yard field goal. He missed a 47-yarder in the first half, but he hit a 50-yard field goal, and he was 3 for 3 from an extra point. So it looks like Matt Ruffalo is our kicker going forward. Nailing a 50-yarder from the left hash. Chance Poore probably would have hooked that one. So, yeah, man. I mean, not too much more really to say. I think, like I said, our guys did what they needed to do defensively. Cash Daniel had a couple of bad plays. He was the one responsible for the gap that Rakeem Boyd busted a 74-yard run to open the drive. They were saying that he was the one responsible for that. He also missed a sack. He came in too hot, was going for a big hit instead of wrapping up, and missed a sack that Arkansas ended up turning into a first down. It was really pivotal. But we got that. It was fourth down in the red zone. They had the ball. I mean, they were literally on the 16-yard line or something. It looked like they were about to score and potentially win the game, and our defense showed up. Calvin Taylor had a big sack, and then I can't remember who it was that hit Ben Hicks, the quarterback, on that fourth down play, but they hit him, so the ball was kind of off, and then Calvin Taylor just stuck his big mitt up there, that 6'9" frame, and knocked the ball down, and we were able to get the stop, and then drove the ball all the way down the field, and we almost scored again. We were a shoelace tackle away from this game being 31-20. That was terrible math. No, actually, it was good math. That was good math. It would have been 31-20 if we just scored that touchdown. Lynn Bowden got tripped up at the 5-yard line. I mean, if that other guy if that Arkansas defender hadn't a shoelace tackled him, it would have been 31-20, and it would have looked like a lot more convincing win than what it actually was. That Cheyenne O'Grady tight end for Arkansas, that dude is a beast. We did a decent job of shutting him down. I mean, 2 of his 4 receptions, he was just left wide open. We're very lucky that neither of Arkansas's quarterbacks could get anything going. I mean, Starkel was really solid. I mean, Starkel was bad in the first half. He was very inaccurate. He was only averaging 2 yards per reception. But then Ben Hicks came in. Like we said, he's the backup. But I think Arkansas doesn't really realize, at least at this point, that switching your quarterback and taking the momentum and shifting the momentum to a different player. I mean, I'm not saying we would have lost if Starkel had been in all game, but I feel like playing one quarterback in one half and then another quarterback in another half is just not good for chemistry. And I'd say that's another big reason why we won the game, because they were running around with 2 quarterbacks. Neither of them really got into a rhythm. I mean, Hicks, like I said, Hicks was playing well. 5 for 8 for 81 yards. Hicks was playing well in the second half when he checked in. So I feel like if Hicks was in all game, there may have been may not have ended up this way. But all in all, we won the game. I'm very happy. I'm very excited. I want to give credit where it's due. Eddie Gran called a solid second half. He called a terrible first half and a solid second half. So by no means do I, oh my God, Eddie Gran is just the second coming of Jesus and we should not criticize him anymore. I don't want to hear that because Lynn Bowden made this win happen with big plays. And I mean, AJ Rose, Cavassier Smoke, and Lynn Bowden, those three big runs they had on that game winning drive was massive. Now, we can attribute that to play calling if we want, but like I said, I'll give credit where it's due. I'm not a very big fan of Eddie Gran, but he called a decent game in the second half. I like that they allowed Lynn Bowden to throw the ball a little bit. I think if Lynn Bowden is our quarterback going forward, we need to utilize the jet sweeps more, maybe throw in some flea flickers, switch it up a little bit. Don't run the ball up the middle quite as much. Lynn did miss a few reads where he probably should have kept it himself or probably should have handed it off. Eddie called a few draw plays with Lynn that never really worked out too well. I feel like Lynn in the pocket, let him drop back in the pocket, look for a pass. If there's nothing there, he can make something happen with his legs. But I don't know. Again, he had almost 200 yards running and almost 80 yards passing, and he accounted for all three of our touchdowns. So Lynn Bowden is the unadulterated MVP. I mean, he's by far the MVP of this game for us. But if I had to say a defensive MVP, I'd probably say Calvin Taylor. I think Calvin had 2 sacks, and he batted down the pass on that 4th down play that ended up turning the ball over and giving it back to us. So all in all, just a great game. I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I'm very proud of the way they fought and clawed. They won this game for Jared Lorenzen. I mean, this was huge. It was a big thing. I was really upset that we were just going to shit the bed pretty much on the Jared Lorenzen celebration day. And as Jared would say, it was one hell of a game. And it's very good feeling that we ended up getting this win. I mean, it was homecoming. It was Jared Lorenzen celebration. I mean, it was a much needed win. It feels really good to come away with a win, come away with an SEC win. I see this as a quality win for us. I see this as a very decent win for us because it's an SEC win. We've got a win in the SEC column. Arkansas played Texas A&M very closely last week or 2 weeks ago and almost beat Texas A&M. And then we were able to come out here and we were able to come back from behind. We were down 13-0. And then we scored 17 unanswered points. And then they scored a touchdown. And then we scored another touchdown to ice the game. And then our defense got a big stop. So very, very happy. It was also very interesting to see Zach Johnson, who's a walk-on running back, returning the kicks. That Josh Ali muffed punt was almost very bad. But again, I need to stop talking about the negatives. I need to talk about the positives. Is great. We got Georgia next week. Georgia lost to South Carolina, which was like a big thing. I watched that game, and I'm still 100% convinced that we're going to lose by like at least 2 touchdowns to Georgia, probably more. Jake Fromm is going to absolutely annihilate our defense. He is. If South Carolina's secondary played very well against Georgia, they were locking them up. Our secondary does not have those capabilities right now. I will say our secondary played very solid today. Jamari Brown had a couple of pass breakups that were really solid. Brandon Eccles showed up once again, although he did have, I think, 2 pass interference calls against him, both of which I think were kind of BS. The first one was definitely BS. The second one was more understandable. But with how much we've struggled against the run, Georgia is going to be very scary. They have like 4 running backs who can probably torch us. And then Jake Fromm, our problem is wide open receivers, and we kind of get lucky sometimes with quarterbacks who can't find those wide open receivers. I can promise you right now, Jake Fromm is going to find those wide open receivers. We're going to get nickel and dime. They're going to break big runs. The best we can hope for is that we're going to come in there and compete. Again, I think Lynn Bowden should be our quarterback going forward. The way he played today, I get it was against Arkansas and whatnot, but the way he played today was enough for me to be down with the idea of him being our quarterback from here on out. So, we'll see what they end up doing. I mean, 7 for 11 passing and then 200 rushing yards. At the end of the day, this is what I've been saying all year. We got to get the ball in the hands of our best player, and Lynn Bowden is our best player. And when Sawyer Smith is our quarterback, we take away that element of getting the ball in our best player's hands, because Lynn Bowden touched the ball every possession today, except for when we ran the Wildcat with A.J. Rose for some reason. It's like, why would you run the Wildcat when you already are running the Wildcat with Lynn Bowden? Like, why run the Wildcat with A.J. Rose if you're already running the Wildcat with Lynn Bowden? That didn't make any sense to me. That's another example of Grant's play calling that I was just very confused about. And then again, on our own 1 yard line, and you run A.J. Rose up the middle 3 times instead of our power back, Chris Rodriguez, who could probably just push through there. I don't know. I'm going to stop wailing on Eddie Grant because he did call a good second half. Those like fake sweeps. I love those like tosses we were doing, where Lynn would kind of read the defense, and then if he had a defender coming at him, he would toss the ball to AJ Rose, who would go out in space, and then if the defender was biting on AJ Rose, he was able to keep it himself. I mean, Lynn Bowden does nothing but create and does nothing but make plays. So very, very happy with the way we played today. With the way we played in the second half, defensively, offensively, the whole 9 yards. We only allowed 1 touchdown in the second half, and we scored 17 points in the second half. So big time comeback and a big time performance from our guys. So yeah, and that's all I got to say. I've said that a few times, but that's really it. It's kind of short recap. Very happy. And I'm glad I'm able to do a recap after a win instead of a loss, which I've been doing them after losses. So I don't want to say I'm optimistic for the rest of the season. Vanderbilt lost. It was 34-10. They lost to UNLV, who was 1-4 going into this game. So I'd say Vanderbilt is basically a Division II team at this point. So Vanderbilt and UT Martin are really still the only 2 games left that I'm very confident about. After Georgia, we have Missouri, and then we have Tennessee. Tennessee just beat Mississippi State, who, if y'all remember, completely dominated us. Now, with Lynn Bowden in at quarterback, if they continue to do that, that kind of gives us a different element. So, maybe our team is going to look a lot different. Maybe with how he played today, and then another week of practice, another few weeks of practice, maybe if he's taking all these snaps and all these reps in practice as the quarterback, and they're kind of able to open the playbook up a little more, maybe we'll be more formidable. But I mean, beating Arkansas by 4 points, it doesn't give me much confidence for teams like Florida, or not Florida, Georgia, and then let's see, did Missouri end up winning their game? I know they were playing Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss was kind of giving them the work at one point. Let's go check. FBS. Here we go. All right, so LSU is beating Florida by 2 possessions. Louisville, it's 55-52 against Wake Forest. Good Lord. 3 minutes left. Penn State beat Iowa. Oklahoma beat Texas. Of course. Come on. Where's that Missouri game? Man, there's a lot of games today. Dude, I'm still scrolling. I still don't see this. Oh, here we go. Okay, Missouri did end up beating Ole Miss. So Missouri is 5-1. Kelly Bryant had 329 yards. Good Lord. Okay, so Missouri, yeah, I'm not very confident about Missouri. So Georgia and Missouri are games that I'm pretty sure we're going to lose. Tennessee is up in the air. I mean, they pretty much thoroughly beat Mississippi State today, who we got pummeled by. But that was when we had no game plan, and our injured quarterback was just lobbing things up. So it's kind of up in the air. Vanderbilt, UT Martin, and then Louisville. with the way Louisville's playing right now, I don't know. That one's kind of up in the air as well. I don't know. It depends. But yeah, that's it for this recap. I'll do a Georgia preview this week, which will also be recapping any other Kentucky news that happens during the week. But very glad to get a win and win it for Jared Lorenzen today. May he rest in peace and go Big Blue. Let's hit the practice field this week and at least try to show up somewhat against Georgia. So you guys have a good night. Go Cats.